Today I like to review two kind of non-fiction books about Olympic 1943, 1936 Olympics. These two books are called Boys in the Boat and Laura Hillenbrand, Unbroken. This is by Daniel James Brown. And those two books, excellent books, but I like to first start with this. The reason why I like to do this, I read these two books a while ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. However, I wanted to do the review of this book because I was taken by these stories, the real story, and I really wanted to do it, but now it's Olympics, Tokyo Olympics. I think it's in a limbo, but I think they, as of today, they decided to execute the Olympics 2021 in August, and a lot of restrictions, a lot of problem because of the tours has to go through this tremendous checks and everything, but I think they are trying to do this Olympics, and so I like to do this review. But first of all, this Boys in the Boat by Daniel James Brown, and it's about the crew member of the University of Washington, 8 boat, the 9, or crew members of 9, right? 8 rowers, and one is like a, the supervisor of those 8 crews. And so this particular thing is a kind of a very strong in my heart, because I went to University of Washington for my master's degree, coming from Japan, and went to the Seattle, and but when I was in there, I was walking around at this beautiful campus in University of Washington, and there's beautiful lakes, Washington Lakes, I think, and there's also this place where the boats are practicing those things there. And I was remembering these places are walking around and see those things. So, and at that time, I felt like, wow, that's very prestigious. Only rich people, rich kids from rich family could enroll in that kind of sports. But reading this book, it's not like that. I think most of them are struggling family kids, and they are not rich kids because maybe East Coast, maybe like a Ivy League type of people, the rich people there. But University of Washington at that time is like a relatively unknown. But they had a chance to compete nationally in the U.S. and all against all those Ivy Leaguers teams, they won, and so they went to the Olympics. And this Olympics is also in Berlin, in Germany, and it's 1936 Olympics, where Hitler ruling the Germany, and so very interesting. And but also German team was a favorite in Olympics to win, but they won the Olympic the particular event. So it's an extraordinary story, and but this book is something more, because they focus on this Joe Rant, one of the members, Joe Rant, coming from very poor family and a broken family, and but he has this tremendous strengths or the emotional ambitions or whatever, and goes to University of Washington and became one of the members of this ruling. And about the particular story, probably maybe 50% of it is up to his story of the his life in the when he was young, and overcoming all kind of difficulty, and competing within Olympics and so forth. And but not much of the the glory of the Olympics, but it's a suffering and the difficulty to become this figure where he could accomplish that much. And coming from a very, very poor background, and the University of Washington at that time wasn't the favorites to represent the U.S. to the Olympic, but they won. They did that, and then in the Olympics, they won. So it's a completely mind-boggling feels when I read this. Wow, and it's a beautifully written, beautiful book, and I strongly recommend that you guys haven't read this book. I want you to read this. I think it's beautifully written, and I think one of the non-fiction books that I really feel that very top of that particular biographical non-fiction book. Okay, so the next one is Laura Hillenbrand, Unbroken. And this also, gosh, it's like amazing story about this guy. His name is the Luis Zamperoni. He is the Olympic athlete. Also, he is like Italian, decent American kid. I think somewhere in the east. I think he's coming from, and he became an Olympic athlete because he could run like a middle distance running. He could run very good, and he is a very athletic person. And I think there's some pictures of him, and he's running here, so forth. And but he went to the Olympics, 1937, 1936 Olympics, that were the same Olympics that the boys on the boat went, and Hitler was reigning there at the time, and he competed in that event. And I don't remember he won the events or not, but he represented the U.S. for that Olympics. But this story is not just that. He then became, World War II started, and he became an air pilot to fight and in the Pacific, against Japan or whatever. And he was gunned down in the Pacific Ocean. His airplane went down, and so he was floating more than 3 or 4 days. He was floating in the Pacific Ocean by himself, just hanging on to that the piece of airplane wrecks or whatever. And he certainly didn't have any chance to survive. But the Japanese boat found him, and so this Japanese boat took him as a prisoner of war. This is the heart of the World War II, and he went to the prisoners' camp in Japan. Then he had, because this is a wartime, and he meets this guy who is very sadistic, guy who very, very mean to the prisoner of war. So he was dealing with this very sadistic Japanese soldier who treating him very badly. And so, but anyway, so that's a story going on, and he survives from all those hardship, and the war ends, and he goes back to U.S. and peacefully. But long after the particular war, he decided to go back to Japan to see what is like Japan at that time. And he goes back and he tried to see this very sadistic soldier who treated him very badly, and meet him. And he ended up meeting him. And I think, wow, that was incredible. And about that story, that he goes back to see Japan again, and all kinds of things, that memories come back and everything, and an incredible story about his survival. And this particular book is very, very good to read and very readable, and became a movie, and Angelina Jolie directed it. And I saw the movie as well, but the movie was, it's good. I think it's very well made. But some parts I think I wish, I wish that if every people who watch the movie has to read this book, even after watching the movie, I think the person has to read this book. This book is much, much more than the film. Film has only 2 hours, time span to enjoy the book, but the book is much, much more in detail and more poignant, I think I would say. So I like those 2 books, and I keep this again. I would like to read this book again, because these books are wonderful non-fiction book, and I'm going to read it again, and I feel this particular emotion again and again. During this pandemic period, the Japanese Olympics in limbo, but I think it's going to happen. I hope it's going to happen, even though it's difficulty executing it, and even though it's financially, not paying off. But I think that's what we need to see the Olympics. Olympics is even though I'm not a sports fan or anything. I don't follow any, footballs or baseballs or anything. But Olympics I watch, like 16 days. Olympics are very vigorous because it's so moving, and I think for that sense, I think Olympics are very important for human beings to be living on this earth, and to feel like there's lots of different culture. You have a racism, all these things going on, war is going on, but still, in a sport, under the name of the sports, they become very friendly and they're united in the Olympics. So that's very, very important. So I'd like to convey the thoughts of my feeling toward the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo. And also I want you guys to read these 2 non-fiction books. Okay, thank you. Bye.